My name is Alexander Valenzuela. I'm the REDCap admin, and I'll be presenting with Andy Arenson, who's the IU REDCap team's technical lead. And before we go any further, I just want to say, and I think I speak on behalf of all of the REDCap team, of course, there's a lot of people to thank for today, and I know that Joe, our fearless leader, will be doing some of that at the end. But if you've been enjoying the swag, if you've been enjoying the food today, and really much of anything related to the setup and everything running smoothly, I would just like to give a big hand to Nancy Long, who's really made this possible. And so without further ado, this is about what's new and what's next. And there's really 3 sections to this. Well, so there has to be some issue. And so I think we've located it for this session. The clicker is not, I suppose it's attached to this clicker. Let's try this. Huzzah. All right. So what's new and what's next? First, we're going to talk about some of the new features from over the past year, actually. Then we're going to have Andy talk about the advanced functionality form that he's developed. And finally, we're going to close with a little preview of some things, some new features that should hopefully be coming soon to IU REDCap, likely in our fall upgrade. I don't want to get your hopes up too much. They're not as exciting for the most part as some of the features that we've had this past year, but you never know. Every 6 months we have our new upgrade. Sometimes it'll be really huge, earth-shaking new features, and other times it's more minor things that are going to help with various aspects of your REDCap use. So we'll talk about some of the new features. I'm going to highlight a few of them, but I just want to start by actually sort of running down. These are all of the new features that we've had added to IU REDCap, or almost all of them, in the past year. So we had last spring, we had 13.1 upgrade. We had all 6 of these new features, downloading files on a report, and I'm going to not read through every single one of them for time purposes, but just at a glance. And then 13.7, we had this upgrade in fall of last year and added all of these more new features. And then this spring, we had all of these additions as well. So again, every 6 months, we're getting new things added. And one of the things that's been mentioned a couple of times at the conference, at REDCap Day so far, is that the REDCap Consortium has an annual REDCap conference. And one of the sessions that the REDCap administrators look forward to, I think it's safe to say, one of the sessions they look forward to the most is this What's New and What's Next session, where we're able to hear about what's been coming recently, and then what's in the pipeline, what's going to be released in terms of new features, new functionality, improvements in the future. And so I thought we could do something similar this time. So just to highlight a few of our especially notable new features from this past year, we had a redesign of the file repository. Those of you who've been working with REDCap for a while know that for a long time, the file repository was a pretty rudimentary format, and there wasn't a lot of customizability. You now have quite a bit that you can do in terms of organizing the files, uploading new files to it. You have this public link option where you're able to share files from within the repository, and then you're also able to restrict it by data access groups. Repeating ASIs, so this and the next feature that I'll talk about were sort of connected, released around the same time. And this allows you to actually schedule automated survey invitations on an indefinitely repeating basis. So this is something that people had asked for a long time. You've had indefinitely repeating instances in general as a functionality within REDCap, but now you're able to automate survey invitations with that. And then so that you could do something similar in alerts, the alerts and notifications feature, there's this smart variable new instance that allows you to reference a particular survey link or survey URL, and then add this new instance smart variable so that the link is always going to point to a new instance, a new repeated instance of that survey form. Then we integrated MyCap. So MyCap started as an external module. It's a participant-facing mobile app that some of you have heard about, and hopefully some of you will be inspired to make use of. And there's some added functionality that we'll get to that will be coming soon, hopefully, that may make it more interesting to you. But basically, it's an external module. It's participant-facing mobile app where you're able to do participant-facing data collection in a way alternative to surveys, survey invitations. You're now able to do this within the MyCap mobile app. So a participant downloads the mobile app, and then you're able to administer tasks, schedule tasks for them to complete, basically the forms, and you're also able to correspond back and forth with them all within the MyCap app rather than doing this through many different emails. And then Mozio SMS services. So we've already had for a little while now a third-party integration for SMS messaging with the Twilio service. But now, in this past year, we've added Mozio. So this is a different third-party service. And basically, the subscription and funding process for that is somewhat different. And so these are two different alternatives. Both of them are possible for you to look into and consider for doing SMS survey invitations. And those can be used for survey invitations and also for alerts. And then the @ShowChoice action tag. So this is something that I heard a number of people requesting over the years. It's sort of the opposite of @HideChoice. So @HideChoice allows you to hide particular values in multiple choice fields. And but what about when you have many different values and you actually only want to display one or two of them or a few of them conditionally? So instead of having to go through and saying @HideChoice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, etc., you're able to instead say @ShowChoice 1, @ShowChoice 9. And so it's very similar, but it can be especially useful for if you're doing an @if and you're making only certain values display based on some condition. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Andy Arenson to talk about the advanced functionality form and external modules.
Coming back, you're just going to have to clap again. Okay. REDCap has a lot of functionality, but there's also a lot of things it doesn't do yet. And so a few years back, the REDCap developers created a framework for third parties, for people around the world who wanted to develop new functionality for REDCap and make it available. This is great, but it has the problem that we didn't develop it and Vanderbilt didn't develop it. So if you use it, you're kind of taking a risk, and we need everybody to understand that. Okay? So I'm going to talk a little bit more about how you can request the external modules that we have already vetted for use locally. But, excuse me, we are going to make the sound better. Testing, testing, testing. Thank you. Okay, but I do want you to know that if there is some third-party module out there that you're interested in, you want us to take a look at it and vet it, you can send us an email. We can have a discussion about it. I can't promise we can do it quickly or that we will decide it is secure enough, but we do want to get this to you if we can. And I'm going to show you how you can find that list a little bit later on. But remember, I had some apologies in the earlier one. One of the earlier session where I was talking, a small apology I have for you now is that we have not yet updated the KB to have some of the articles that can point to a couple of things we're going to talk about here but that will be coming. Okay, so REDCap is in this big red box, right? And within it, all this different existing functionality, okay? And there's also this thing called the API, the Application Programmer Interface. And a few years back, 10 years ago at this point, we asked ourselves the question of, is the API safe to use? And if so, are there any sort of restrictions we need to put on it? And during that process, we learned that, yeah, there's a little bit of user education we want to do before we allow people to use the application programming interface to create their own custom code, because they may be running millions of queries and filling up our disk or slowing down the system, these sorts of things. And they need to be safe about how they're controlling the token that's used to control the application programmer interface. So for a long time, we've had a forum for people who want to use the API. What we have found over time, however, is that there's other things that we also want to give people education about and discuss with them before we just set them loose. Okay, just to continue with sort of the infrastructure or the architecture of REDCap, the REDCap mobile app, which Alexander was just mentioning, also uses the API. The REDCap MyCap app, this is the participant focusing application, uses its own specialized API. And then we get the external modules, okay? So this list that's popping up on the left, I don't expect you to read and understand what all of these are, but these are all external modules that we've already vetted and in many cases made available to you for self-discovery and enablement. You can go into, and I'll show you this in a second, there's a place you can go in your projects and look for these and either enable them yourselves or ask us to enable them for you. There's one external module that we've developed locally, which I put in this red border because even though it's an external module, we do support it. That's REDCap ETL. We haven't had a lot of discussion about REDCap ETL and what it can do here. It's really cool. Takes your data, can move it out to a relational database or to CSV files, automates it for you. Good stuff. Different topic. It also uses the API, and there's at least one external module that we vetted, which again uses the API. So I just want to point out that some things use the API, and that's why we've extended the old API request form to be this advanced functionality form. In addition, there are a number of these external modules, which, as I was saying, we want to provide a little bit of warning, a little bit of guidelines, guardrails, if you will, about who uses them and for what purpose. Okay, so if you're in your project and you click on this link, which says manage in the external module section, it brings you to this page, which is being displayed, which is the external modules manager. And you see on your average project you just start, there's no modules there yet, but you can click this show available modules button and it will bring up a page like this. And in this page, you can see, oh, there's a bunch of different external modules that could potentially be added to this project. And some of them have a little enable button and you can just add it yourself. You don't have to wait. But some of them, we're going to ask you to fill in this form. Now, if you click this request activation button, it just sends an email to our ticketing system, and we're going to have to turn around and send you the link to the advanced functionality form or start a discussion with you. But that is one way that you could say, oh, here are some things that are available and interesting. All right, here's that advanced functionality request form. On here at the top, there is a link to the entire worldwide repo of external modules that the Vanderbilt team have done some initial vetting on their part. There's more than 200 of these, okay? So if you want, you can, if you get access to this page, and I'm sorry that there isn't yet a place in the KB that takes you right to it or some easier way to get to it, but you can find this link. And if you see anything on there you like, send us an email. We can have a discussion about doing the vetting. By the way, I haven't talked a whole lot about what that vetting is and why it takes a long time, but we want to make sure that these modules are secure, that they're private, that they're not going to cause performance issues and keep other people from being able to use the system, that sort of a thing. And so we do a code review and we talk to the developers of the system and we do a few other things. Also, just as another reminder, you don't have to use this form for some of the external modules that you can enable yourself. If you do make a choice on here, some of the warnings will pop up, tell you a little bit about what to think about. This is a fairly simple one. It's just saying that the REDCap ETL module requires the API. And then depending on what you pick, there's going to be some other questions lower down where we ask you some information about what you're doing so we can start that conversation. And that's pretty much it. So hopefully you've learned external modules exist. There are some risks involved, and we're really excited about you finding out what they are and letting us know which of those are going to help you so we can decide where to put our energies on deciding which ones to bring in-house.
Coming up, one person on chat asked, and I think this goes back to Alexander's, is MyCap the same as the previous mobile app?
All right, so hopefully everyone can hear me again. All right, good. So that's a good question, and it's actually one that I always, or almost always, try to include in my intro sessions, and because this question does come up a surprising amount about MyCap, about mobile app, and about the mobile app and its use in general. So basically, the MyCap app, as Andy showed on the slides, the MyCap app is something distinct from the REDCap mobile app. And then both of those are distinct from just accessing REDCap on your device. So I don't want to spend too long getting into the details of this, but basically MyCap is a participant-facing mobile app where a participant is going to download that, and they're going to be able to join a project and do tasks on that MyCap app, and send messages on the MyCap app, send and receive messages, and then that that data, any data that they submit in that app, is then going to go to the REDCap database. But it's participant-facing, participant-led in that, in terms of who's using the app. The REDCap mobile app is an application. It's also a mobile app, but it's specifically for use for data collection in places where there's limited or no internet connectivity. And so it provides a way for you to be able to do some data collection when there's no internet. And then later on, when you've got internet, you're able to sync, upload that data to the database. Whereas if you just want to be able to either complete a survey in REDCap, or you want to log into REDCap and enter data, and there is an internet connection, you don't need to use any kind of mobile app whatsoever. You're going to be able to access that through the browser of whatever your device may be. Hopefully that's helpful. So coming soon to IU REDCap, and these are all necessarily tentative, but I selected things that it seems pretty clear that we'll be able to add them. These have already been released by REDCap, and so they're just awaiting our next upgrade, which will be in the fall. So project dashboard folders is one of these. So some of you have started using project dashboards, which allow you to create, to use some smart functions, smart charts, smart variables to be able to create a dashboard that's going to display some aggregate data information. And so those can be really interesting, really nifty. And so now you're going to be able, similarly to how there was a redesign of the file repository to allow you to do more customizing and organizing, you're going to see that with project dashboards so that you can organize it into folders. So this is one that it's a little more nitty-gritty, but I know that some of you who have been working with alerts and ASIs for a while will enjoy this. So there's going to be this test run feature for alerts and ASIs. So there's been for a while now an option that you can reevaluate any ASIs or alerts. So let's say you make a change to the setup for the alerts or the ASIs, you're able to then reevaluate all or one of them or several of them. And REDCap is going to check whether there's any new survey invitations or any new alerts that need to be scheduled or need to be sent out. So this will allow you to do a test run, a dry run for that, that's not actually going to schedule anything or send anything, but it's going to basically give you a listing of any records that would be scheduled or would be sent if you really reevaluated it. And so that should help you feel more comfortable making the decision about whether you want to really reevaluate the ASIs or the alerts. You'll also have this additional option to download a CSV file of all the affected record names, and that's whether you're using the test run option or whether you're actually reevaluating them. So you'll be able to have a list of any records that have been scheduled or sent. So in earlier this spring, in our last upgrade, we got these useful new special functions for date and date time fields, where basically you can separate out, you can get the day, the month, the year. And so typically, or I should say in the past, and currently for IU REDCap, the way that works is you're going to have day, and then in parentheses, you're going to reference some particular date or date time field variable name. You're now going to be able to use now and today. And so that's going to give you a specific date component of today's date. So I've put some examples there for today's date.
Maddie.
Somebody's especially excited about this new feature. I feel the same way. So there's going to be a new built-in PDF viewer, which this is really useful. And in fact, I just presented about the REDCap's e-consent framework, and this is going to be especially useful, I think, for that, but also for any other uses that you have for inline PDF viewing in descriptive fields, or if you're using @inline in a file upload field, you're going to be able to now, if you're on an iOS or Android device, which for a lot of us is most of the time if we're accessing it on a device, you're now going to be able to scroll all the way down through that inline PDF. So this was actually a gap in functionality that apparently these iOS and Android device users were not able to scroll past that first page of the inline, which is an issue. And right, it was a real concern. And but now that's going to be addressed. And so if the current device is iOS or Android, which is most of them, or if it lacks a native PDF viewer, then REDCap's built-in PDF viewer will be utilized automatically. And so that will be very helpful. And you can see I was so excited about the use of this for e-consent framework that I actually included. It includes e-consent certification page up there. And then down here at the bottom, I added that also. That was intentional. So MyCap, there are a couple more features coming for that. So one of the features I didn't highlight or talk about earlier was that MyCap started out where these tasks are basically set up as repeating instances, and you're able to schedule a number of repeating instances. MyCap sort of designed for longitudinal projects, but up until the last upgrade, you weren't able to actually combine that with REDCap's own longitudinal data collection with defined events functionality. And so you had to choose from one or the other. Now, in the last upgrade, we got functionality so that now you can use MyCap with longitudinal defined events. However, if you're using those defined events, the MyCap tasks are not actually indefinitely repeating in the way that they were when you're not using longitudinal defined events. Instead, those events will basically function as a schedule where you're going to send once per each event. And so there's a gap there in terms of functionality. And so I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm so excited about this feature. So what I've been telling you about is this repeating instrument functionality for longitudinal projects. That's now going to be available in MyCap. So you'll be able to have these longitudinal defined events, but still, nevertheless, also have it repeating indefinitely within each of those events. But now, taking a step back, so the mobile toolbox These are mobile toolbox measures. It's a research platform that includes a library of cognitive and other tests that can be administered on a smartphone. And so this is now going to be added to MyCap, made available to MyCap. These are from the NIH toolbox, the International Cognitive Ability Resource, Patient-Reported Outcomes Measurement Information System. So the PROMIS instruments that some of you are familiar with, likely from the shared library. And this is going to be something similar. So now when you go to Online Designer and you have MyCap enabled, you'll see a button that you can click for Import Active Task, and you'll be able to draw from these MTB toolbox measures. So hopefully both of those things should increase your interest in using MyCap, considering MyCap. So this is the time for questions and answers. And that can be for me or for Andy, and it can be on person or in Zoom. Just let us know.
I know you have these burning questions. Somebody online had a burning question and they ran away. I don't know where they went.
So with the new MyCap app, I've on a study where we use an app that's fairly simple and asked a couple questions. MyCap app would be useful, and I'm curious if there would be functionality. This might sound creepy on the surface, but to track people's geographic location as well in that app. If they're on a certain study.
Do you have any particular idea in mind? Are you thinking of somebody entering that information, or you're wanting to know, is it going to collect that as metadata about
Well,
somebody?
so yeah, the interest is in recording stressors and figuring out what time people report stressors, but also where they are when they're reporting that. So that's the currently
Right.
we let people know their locations tracked on kind of an ongoing basis, but I was curious if that was a possibility.
There are a number of action tags specific to MyCap and to MyCap forms where it's collecting various things. Do you happen to recall, Andy, whether that's one of them?
I can't answer your question definitively. I think you may be asking, is there a way to collect location? And you may also be asking, is there a way to keep people safe from having their location collected? And I think that there is a way to collect location, although I'm not 100% certain about that. And as far as keeping people safe from it, anytime you're entering information via the web, an IP address is going to get logged somewhere. But I don't think that it's going to get logged in REDCap. No, it might be get logged in REDCap's web server. But the reality is that this is a serious concern. Please ask us to look further, and we can contact the developers to find out the details.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Right.
Great. Other questions? Folks, we have a lot of folks left in Zoom too. So if you have questions there, you can throw them in chat, or you can unmute and ask your question, or you can raise your hand. I'll call on you, but we'll take more questions. Go ahead. Yeah.
This might be obvious to others who have already used the MyCap feature to have the mobile access for your participants, but I am curious, is that something that when you're setting up the study can be an option per participant? Like let them know, oh, if you'd like, you can upload this mobile and you'll collect your data with the folks who want to do it that way. But then those who might want to do it, no, I want you to call me, but can you do both on a study?
Yes, so that's a great question. And I just want to confirm with Robert. Robert, is it currently set up where everyone on Zoom is hearing the question, or do I need to repeat the question? All right. So hopefully everyone's heard the question about MyCap and I'm blanking on your question. So it was about MyCap and
Can you use both MyCap and standard data?
Thank you. So yes, the answer is yes. Of course, there's going to be questions, if you have questions about workflow and setup in terms of if you have a number of different forms and also thinking about your population. But yes, you're able to, just as you've always been able to do for a form that's enabled as a survey, you can do internal data entry on that form. You don't have to enter it in survey mode. So in the same way, you're able to add MyCap as another option for a form. So a form can be enabled and used by one record, by one participant as a MyCap task, but it can also, that same form can be sent out to someone else on another record as a survey invitation. And then again, for that same form, someone else can go in, maybe if you've collected some data through paper entry, and then you want to go and manually enter that as an internal data entry into that same form, you're able to do that too. So that can all be within one project. Yes.
Before we go on, there is a
Yeah.
question from the chat I want to add. So the question asked is there a place where we, end users, can consult lists of the items that are being developed or bugs to be fixed in REDCap? And the answer is sadly no. We as REDCap administrators have access to that, but most users of REDCap do not.
A question earlier, Andy, that you helped answer, but I think it could be helpful for the people here in the room too. If somebody wants to recommend a new feature, there's a couple different ways to do that, right? So how would they go about recommending a new feature? And if more people recommend the same feature, does that help percolate that recommendation to the top?
Okay, so the first question, if you want to contact us and ask us to recommend it on your behalf, we can certainly do that. But also within any REDCap project, on the left-hand side navigation menu towards the bottom, there's a link that says recommend a feature, and that data, those submissions go directly to the Vanderbilt development team. Now, will deluging them with asking the same thing make a difference? Maybe.
I'm sorry, can you go back to when you were discussing paper surveys in MyCap? You just were talking about it.
Sure.
I think you mentioned something about, I don't remember. It was
Well,
something.
so not paper surveys in MyCap, but rather that, for any form in REDCap, you can complete that as an internal data entry form. So I can open up my REDCap project, log in, I can go into that project, into a particular form, and I can type in internal data entry, or I can upload data to that REDCap project. And so I'm not, however I got that data, so, I could go and collect that from some participant on a paper form, and then I'm going and taking that data from the paper form, putting it into REDCap. So that's always an option. But in that same project, I could also have that form enabled as a survey and email it out to some people. And then also it could be used for as a MyCap task. Does that?
Yeah, thank you.
And Michelle, I think.
Yeah, 1 second.
Oh, watch out, we got a ringer here. Michelle is or one of the REDCap administrators at UC, or
University of Illinois,
yeah.
Urbana-Champaign. We
Yeah.
took the drive over this morning.
Right.
I just wanted to add some stuff about having MyCap form in both MyCap and base REDCap to her question. There's going to be some functionality that's not the same. In particular, MyCap allows active tasks like tapping tasks and map tasks and things like that won't function in a regular REDCap survey. And I believe Andy and Alexander, you might know better. There's some stuff that doesn't work in MyCap, like some piping or branching logic across like instruments or events. And so if you do want to use, give participants an option of MyCap versus a regular survey, you just might want to check and make sure that the functionality you need to use is going to function across everything correctly. So, yeah.
And thank you, Michelle. That's a great clarification. And when you go into the project setup page in your project, you enable MyCap. You can click, there's a little button about learn more about MyCap, or what is MyCap, something like that. And it actually has a little paragraph where it's going to list at least the most significant of those functionality limitations of a MyCap task vis-a-vis surveys or other uses of the form. And those are changing, but yes, that's correct, that there are still some of these functionality limitations. So thank you.
All right, final question. This is final Jeopardy. Are you ready?
This is going to be a really random question, but does anyone know if REDCap has been used as a survey tool within prisons? Has anybody? It's super random question.
Then going once. Go, Michelle,
Michelle, you can take extra cookies.
Thank you so much. I know somebody who in early COVID was doing some stuff at Wayne State with the mobile app, but I'm not updated on like how well that project went. They had a lot of issue with the police department getting getting everything approved. And then, as far as subpart C, getting that approved by an IRB, it might have some additional concerns. And so I know that that's like the only thing I've heard about it. We don't have anybody at Illinois doing anything, but yeah.